We're in.
So,
Whew.
what's a who?
Whew. Man, this is going to turn into a therapy session. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Man, I'm tired. It's if you're not watching on the Spotify or YouTube right now, like
you're really missing out.
The most adorable face that Jeremiah has given
in the history of the podcast.
My brain is fried. Like I am absolutely fried. Like fried to the point where it's like I'm not entirely sure how the next hour is going to go.
Okay.
Like, and this is an by hour basis. This is the thought process of like.
So it's not necessarily the podcast that you're like, oh, you mean just in general, the idea of the next hour you don't know. So when this hour is done, it could be the same statement. I don't know how the next hour is going to go.
For sure.
Okay.
And this is actually, I'm really excited about this because Liz was telling me earlier today, she's like, you just need to go find something that you just like doing and just do that. I was like, I don't have time.
The response was, babe, I'm with you. I enjoy doing that.
Which is true. And she knows that. But I think, you'll get this. You'll get married soon. Like there's this thing that's, right. You have to be able to do something outside of marriage. The thing that that always kind of like, it energizes you.
Yeah.
I'm not always that for Liz.
Tom Brady gets plugged in at the Hertz station. You do podcasting. It works out.
The thing that gets Tom Brady fired up is retiring and then unretiring.
This is true. I was referencing a particular commercial, but yes, you're talking about real Tom Brady. It's the retirement, unretirement.
Yeah.
Almost as much as Jordan retired and unretired, came back to basketball, left basketball. Was
he any good when he came back?
Yeah. The first time he came back, he three-peated in the NBA, and then he retired again.
Really?
And then he came back to the Wizards, and he was just older.
When he came back, did he come back to the Bulls?
The first time, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, the second time he came back to the Wizards.
Yeah.
Where was baseball in there?
Baseball was the first time. So he left. He three-peated. He left because of his father passing,
mm-hmm.
and then he went and tried to play baseball for the White Sox and made Space Jam or something like that in that process. Which is probably the best thing to come out of his retirement.
Space Jam?
Yeah. Because his baseball career, not so much.
Right.
Baseball
Did he even go to the majors? Wasn't he in the minors?
He was in the minors, yeah. He might have had, during spring ball or something like that, a couple of, major league games, but that's spring ball. They let anyone play those games.
They let anybody?
Well, Will Ferrell did a thing where he went to 9 different teams and played 9 different positions in one day.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It was for cancer, and so he was doing it to honor someone. So he played for 9 different positions, batted, and then
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to. I remember watching that in the spring day just because it was just a cool concept. Like, one, he's an actor; he's not a baseball player. Mm-hmm. But two, just okay, he's on this team. And there was times where actually I think for every game he would play for team 1, and then run to the dugout, switch jerseys, play for team 2.
Wow.
Just so, obviously it's spring ball and everyone knows what's happening. So they're not like, oh my goodness, this is going to hurt our record or anything like that.
Right. All right.
I don't know why, but I want music playing right now.
You want like a background music?
Yeah.
Like for us or for when this thing is edited together?
For
just
us.
Like right now, just something for us to listen to.
Yeah. Because you're used to listening to things and then when you're doing it live, there's no music playing.
What? When you're doing things?
Yeah, there's no music going right now, right?
No.
So if we have any background music, we do it in post.
Right, that's true.
And if I'm listening to the podcast, out and about, I'm used to hearing it with music. But right now, there's no music, and so my brain's like, there's something missing.
So you listen to the podcast and to music at the same time?
No, I don't. But I don't know. Maybe I'm in my car, so it's so noisy.
Okay,
that could be it. That could be what my brain's trying to my brain has turned the i5 into a noise soundtrack.
It does feel quiet in here right now.
I don't know. It's every Thursday is like this. It's always quiet like this. But I don't know.
And it's gonna get louder.
Yeah. So Jesse and I, we work with youth kids.
It's true.
And tonight is the last night of our school year for junior hires. So we're going to have anywhere from 2 to 25 or so junior hires here tonight.
Yeah, it's
hit and miss.
It really is. Yeah, I think just from like the group text today, I think at least 2 will be here, and then we'll see.
But we'll play games. Kind of have a giant celebration.
Yeah,
we're buying ice creams.
Lots of ice cream.
So it's gonna be junior hires hopped up on games and sugar.
Yeah,
and us old timers trying to keep up.
It's true.
And that's our Thursday night.
Yeah. That is.
If you ever want to get into youth ministry, that's what you're in for.
Which is a blast.
It 100% is. It's very filling, but in the moments beforehand, you're just, why?
Yep. yeah, and that's one of those things too that I've noticed over the years that I could be having just the roughest day and be absolutely exhausted, and then walk into junior high with all the kids there, and then I'm ready to go.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so energizing. And then when everybody leaves, I feel like I'm going to die because it's just the sugar crash kind of thing.
Well, it's like the adrenaline, right? Like if you have a shot of adrenaline from whatever you're doing, your body can continue on. And then the second you take a moment of break, your body's like, oh, we're done. Like your muscles get all tight and tense. You're just like, I can't move anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, I remember that happening a lot in college whenever like finals were coming or something like that. Like there's just a lot of like you're building up adrenaline as you study and as you prepare and you do all these things, and then as soon as finals are done, you get sick.
Yeah,
because your body's like, like I don't have to. Just like everything has been like fighting everything off to get to that point, and then now that your body's kind of relaxing, it's like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I've heard that even like in businesses, or like in the business world, you'll work really hard, and then the second you go on vacation, your body's like, I can rest. And that's why a lot of people get sick on vacation. It's because their body's finally taking a rest.
Yeah.
And All
right.
So what do you want to talk about? Because I have a couple things. Where's my phone? Oh, my phone's recording. Dang it. Give me a second.
Yeah.
With the power of technology, I can pull up my thoughts that I came up with.
Yeah.
And these are follow-ups from last week's podcast.
Okay.
So
great.
If you're ever thinking to yourself, hey, what are these guys talking about? You're going to have to go back to last week, kind of get a brief rundown.
Okay, because last week we focused a lot on guns.
Yep.
Gun control, and then some Mark of the Beast, which was probably the more fun part of that conversation.
Yep.
But
no, out of the two conversations, it's definitely the more fun one.
Which is funny to think, like we had so much fun talking about the Mark of the Beast.
Yes.
Yeah, and even leading up to this right here, I've been trying to anyways prep for a sermon because I'm preaching main church on Sunday, and it is just not coming together at all. Like it's been so rough, and so I have been stressing myself out to no end, and so it's like, oh, there's a podcast. Well, we'll just see what Jeremiah's got.
So I have two things, and really they won't take very long. So unfortunately, I don't think you and I, we can make them take forever, but they weren't designed to.
Yeah. And last week was so long.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like balancing out.
And we have that other thing we want to talk about. Do you just want to make that today's podcast?
The other thing?
Huh? Yeah, spoilers.
Spoilers. Oh, spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers.
Oh. We could. I'm only at 2 though.
We can talk about that. I won't spoil anything for you.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. We totally could.
Okay.
I don't remember a ton, but
okay. We can just get general thoughts on it. General thoughts.
Hello there.
Have you General Kenobi? Did you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
I did not.
Okay. There's a gag that goes on between two characters. Whenever you say like a military rank, like general, you like general thoughts. You just say the thing immediately following it by saluting.
Okay.
So if you were to say like lieutenant for some reason, you'd have to say Lieutenant Treble or what? Lieutenant Treble? So, yeah.
Treble.
Well, yeah, if it's like lieutenant and you say, oh, Lieutenant Treble, or like general is the one that comes up much. It's like general thoughts or my general feelings. And then you say like general feelings.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So whatever that phrase is.
Yeah, whatever the following phrase is, you just kind of repeat it as if you're saluting that person.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
fun.
Yeah. It's no one in the show liked it except for the two like characters.
The 2 people who were doing it back and forth.
All their friends like, this is the worst thing ever. Please do not do this again. So two quick thoughts on it is, so we talked a lot about like just what can we do, and we recognize that ultimately Jesus has to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's really what it's going to come down to, right?
Right.
So practically, what do we do as Christians and then as Americans as well? Because we find ourselves in both worlds. Like, how do we handle that, right?
Okay.
And so my question, and I'll see if this makes sense, and you just tell me if I need to clarify. Do we need to take into account the fact that the majority of people will never be God-fearing people when making rules and laws?
I get it. That's a big question.
Yeah. So that was my first thought I had, right? And then you mentioned last week that it's weird that an 18-year-old can go and just buy a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But they're adults, right? By all standards.
True. You're right.
And so I have thoughts on an adult should be able to do everything that an adult should do. So if you're 18 and you can do something if you're an adult at that point, in my personal opinion, you should have all the rights of an adult. So at 18, you should be able to drink. You should be able to buy guns. You should be able to drive. Okay. That's my general. Like, if you're an adult, you're an adult. There's no 1821, 1825. Right. In my mind, you're an adult. You're an adult.
Right.
So we can talk about those two things if you want.
Sure. Let's podcast about it. Okay, which one's first?
Let's go with the first one I teed up there. Do we need to take into account the fact that the majority of people will never be God-fearing people when making rules and laws?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back. Did we mention it last week? The idea of a theocracy?
We did briefly mention a theocracy.
Right, the idea that there is a higher power, right? And that's where rules and laws are coming from, and that's what we follow.
Yeah.
Right? And so Israel, way back in the day, had one.
Yeah.
It didn't go well.
Nope.
But that was the idea, that it was God who was in charge. God was the one that was giving the laws and the commands, and the people were to follow them and to obey. Now, it does sound, when I say it that way, it does sound like very authoritarian kind of thing. But God's whole plan was, hey, look, my if you just trust me and if you just obey my commands, like, I'm going to bless you to no end. And because you're going to be so blessed, nations around you are also going to be blessed. Like, there is a great ripple effect that is about to happen here if you can just trust that I have your best interest at heart. Yeah. That, like, if you just follow me, like, this is going to be really good for everybody. It's going to be. And they're like, we want our own king.
We want to be like the other nations, not the other nations like us.
Right. And so even with the theocracy, like, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
So I think when you've got a country like ours, which even if it is, because the majority of our country, I think, latest polls anyways, majority, which is probably only in the 50% now, would say that they identify as Christian or some kind of Protestant. You could probably even lump Catholic in there.
I would say
right?
Catholic gets lumped in there usually when they have those polls.
Right. And so, but that is from my experience anyways, is like a cultural identity, not a relational identity, right? Because I think that as Christians, when you read the Scripture's all about having a relationship with God. And in fact, that's what that original theocracy was supposed to be, was God having a relationship with his people and his people having a relationship with God. And
even going back a little bit further, Adam and Eve.
Right.
Like, that was, we're having a relationship with each other.
Yep.
Listen to me. I know what's best for you.
Yeah. Trust me.
That's apparently difficult for humans to do.
So difficult. So difficult.
Even when you know someone face to face, it can be difficult to trust them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we it's just and I don't know if that's like an American thing. I don't know if it's a people thing.
It has. I mean, we just named off the Israelites, Adam and Eve, Abraham, us. Yeah, it's got to be that's a human condition thing, where I want to take control of things and I want to control the outcomes. Yeah, and the only way to truly control the outcomes is for me to control the inputs, I guess, like everything about it. Yeah. Yeah, it's it's only been the last couple of years that this has even been a phrase, but FOMO, right? That whole idea of like fear of missing out. Like, I need to be in charge because I might be missing out on something. Like I need to be in control of everything that happens around me because I would hate this idea or the potential, the possibility that I've missed out on something, right? And that's even kind of what that first lie spoke to Eve kind of was. It was like,
the serpent said, is that really what God meant?
Yeah.
Right. And Eve should have very quickly been able to say, like, no, you're misrepresenting God. No, like, he's taking care of us. Like, we totally trust him. But instead, what that did is that planted that tiny little seed of like, I wonder if there is something better.
Yeah.
Right. And then the rest is history.
As they say.
As they say.
So, yeah, when we're considering laws and stuff, do we need to take into account that, the person next to me isn't a Christian, more than likely, right? Just pure percentage wise, right. They're not really a Christian. They don't have a relationship with Jesus.
Right.
That's what I mean by Christian there, right? As you said, like, should we take into account that aspect of things when making laws? Like, can you control enough people if they don't believe in Jesus?
Right. So if even if the majority of the country were like relationally Christian people, so even if it was 55%, 70%, does that mean that 70% gets to tell the other 30% what to do and what to believe? Because in essence, your laws are going to be based around what you believe. That's how you dictate laws, right? Like, I believe this is what's right, and I believe this is what we should all be doing, even if you disagree.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be the hope, but I mean, I think our country, from what I can tell, it was built on the idea that, like, humans can't be trusted, and so they need to allow humans to do what they're going to do, and just regulate, kind of like, hey, here's the sandbox you get to live in, and you can do whatever you want within that sandbox, but the second you step out of those bounds, we're going to have some issues.
Right.
But now we're getting to a point where a lot of people are stepping out of those bounds. There's not a cultural, like, idea that's keeping people in check. Like, you used to watch your neighbors and, talk to your neighbors and stuff. At least that's the idea that I get from, like, 50s and 40s and stuff like that. Whether or not that's true, I wasn't alive. But you have this idea, and so it's like we don't have that cultural, like, expectation to be friendly and stuff like that. And so we're slowly losing this idea that, hey, someone can go get a gun and, start shooting people up. Like, is that something we can actually regulate? Do we need to take into account that no one's a God-fearing person when doing this?
Yeah, I mean that last part falls into kind of what you had talked about last week, that the world's broken. It's evil. Like, that's the tragedy is going to happen. You can't stop, or we can't minority report this thing, right? Like, you can't stop all.
If we could minority report things, should we?
See that. Well, I tell you what, you get into like SHIELD and what's the other one?
Hydra and the laser gun thing that they're using to kill. We're gonna use they're unalive people, as you say on TikTok.
Unalive things. Yeah. And even what was that? Moon Knight, the bad crocodile goddess. Amet. Yeah. In any case. I think that when it comes to making rules, and let me just caveat all of this right here. I am so glad I'm not a politician. Like, I am so glad that my job is not dependent on making rules for people with such an incredible, diverse background and experience and knowledge and preference. Like, I don't ever want to do that. Like, I have no desire to do that whatsoever. But I think that when it comes to that, man, because you want to be able to make rules that are for their best interest, right? That's the idea of making laws, is that I'm doing this to protect people.
Yep.
But I think you're right. Now that people are operating outside of this kind of like sandbox that they've been given, what's best for me is now relative. So like it like everything has become so relative now, that you can have two people with the exact same backgrounds that are like, oh, but I don't prefer that, like, or I do, right? You can't. And so you have to have, like, again, so glad I'm not a politician. You just have to be able to make a rule and just be like, man, I hope the majority of the people are okay with that.
Yeah. And just because the majority of people are okay with something doesn't make it morally right. Now, that's coming from a concept that there is an actual moral right.
Right.
Which, the more and more I'm interacting with people, the less and less I'm sure that everyone agrees with that statement.
And I've heard people argue that there isn't, right? And until you chase it all the way down to, like, the absence of morality means, like, truly survival of the fittest. And if things are truly survival of the fittest, then there should be no reason that we can't go out and murder the weakest people.
Well, we should if we're trying to actually, based off an evolutionary standpoint.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't do that because it's survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be wrong. But there is a thing inside of our brains that go, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that, though. Like, that feels wrong. It feels icky.
Yeah.
And so you're right. So there is a morality, but people will fight against that, right?
Yeah.
Because if I can fight against the idea of morality, then, or an inherent morality, then there is kind of like, not that I'm free to do whatever I want, but there's less accountability. There's less expectation on me. Cause I'm like, oh, well, I don't believe that there's a difference between right and wrong.
Yeah. And that can lead into the abortion discussion, right? If there's no objective morality out there, then if it's best for you to kill a baby or to kill a baby, that's what I'll call it, but people want to say a fetus or a clump of cells or whatever you want to, like the thing inside of a woman, then that makes sense.
Right. If you can redefine the term, right, and redefine what the baby is, right? Like, because we believe that it is a baby.
It is the start of a human life. Right.
It's not going to be something else.
No.
There's one thing that it will be. It is, and that is a baby. But if I can redefine that, well, then I can do anything, right?
Yeah.
And then it kind of like frees me from that. Now, I think also because. So I'm not trying to get canceled already yet in this podcast, but like those types of people that are able and feel okay with redefining things, they also lack the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Right? Like the Holy Spirit is the thing that makes things make sense on that moral level. And so if you have not put your faith and trust in Jesus, if you've not declared him Lord of your life, then you've not received the Holy Spirit. And so if you don't have the Holy Spirit, these things are going to make sense to you.
Yeah.
And you'll define them any way you need to so that they can make sense in your tiny little context. And then so now you've got all these different pockets of context all over the place, but there's no unifying thought, no unifying spirit, which is what the Holy Spirit brings. And so without that, you just, man, everything's way more complicated than it would need to be.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, this is kind of like, this is what happens. My brain has been so like all over the place for the last week that I'm going to rabbit trail onto everything.
Let's see what happens. Yeah. I got my 2 questions on the back burner. We'll come back to it if we need to.
This idea of God, I had mentioned it already, like calling people to himself so that they can then be a blessing to other nations, right? That didn't work, right? The nation of Israel, right? That's why when Jesus came and it's like, okay, well, we're going to go hang out with the Gentiles now because this isn't working, right? So,
well, he was always planning to hang out with the Gentiles, but in the Israelite eyes, yes,
right. That was the next step.
Yeah.
And so it's been opened up to everybody, Gentiles, which is us. We've been grafted
the non-Israeli people,
right?
The non-Hebrew.
Yes. We've been grafted into that branch, to that tree. And so we are now a part of the family, but that same idea of existing to bless others, right? And so like while we live here and we're surrounded by all these different pockets of other context and other people, other beliefs, other whatever, we are called to live our lives in a way that is a blessing to them, right? Like, I don't know. I could put under my eye John 3:16 or whatever, and maybe somebody will see it and Google it, and then their life will be changed. Maybe. But I think more likely, if I can live my life in a way that shows that I love God because God loves me, right? And then I can share that love with other people, just in the way that I treat them, the way that I take care of them, the way that I encourage them, the way that I treat them better than myself, right? Which is a part of what Jesus said in the greatest commandments, that then they will start to see life differently. Yeah. Right. And then that's when they ask like, hey, there's something different about like what's going on with you, which then, brings us back to Peter says that in 1 Peter somewhere 3, I think, that like you need to always be ready to talk about the reason for the hope that you have, because you're different. You're going to stand out different. And so you have to, I'm getting a call. And so you have to be ready to talk about that. Yeah. Right. And that's how you kind of like mute. That's how you have an effect on on other people. Anyways, so kind of going back to that. I think that our role in a culture and a society that is full of people that believe every other thing than we do, is to live how we believe, to live what we believe. Because if we just go around saying like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Christian too," but there's nothing about our lives that are different, then who cares? I don't. What's the point?
Yeah. Oh, this reminds me a quick anecdote on this whole issue, right? Back before I was in the Navy, many years ago.
Wow, yeah.
I worked at a grocery store.
Okay.
And
I worked at a grocery store before I was in the Army.
I was a bag boy. Oh, nice.
Look at this.
And, I was just, doing my normal bag boy thing, whatever that looked like for the day, And one of the guys who worked in the meat department or something like that, he was talking to me. He goes, "There's something different about you. You're always joyful." He's like, "Are you do you know Jesus? Or do you know God?" Or he said something it was he saw I was joyful, and then immediately associated that with a God figure, right? So it was just as a practical example, like when you live out true joy, people will notice.
Yeah.
And then as a result, I have to believe that they're going to come to me and say, "I want whatever that is."
Right. Yeah. There is a lady that I worked with when I was in the Army. I was stationed at Fort Lewis, and I was the only soldier in an army in an office full of civilians.
You're the only army of one.
Army of one. My orders were so weird. People had no idea what to do with me. I was technically an inactive reserve soldier out of, I think, St. Louis, with but assigned to Human Resources Command in Virginia with duty at Fort Lewis, Washington. It was all over the place.
You Army guys are so weird.
For sure. I'll take it. Anyways, there was a lady that I worked with, and she just working with her, I knew that she had a thing against Christians. She wasn't super fond of them because I think it was her mother-in-law was kind of a pushy kind of Christian.
Yeah.
And so she just had this real kind of bad taste in her mouth. And, but I just kind of I never made any specific point to try to educate her or proselytize.
Yep.
Proselytize.
I know the word.
It's
Please
one
do
of
not
those.
ask me
it's
to.
one of those.
Yes, it is. Proselytize.
Right. To
not prostitute. That's for sure.
No, definitely not that one.
Proselytize.
Right.
That sounds right, but
yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
But Lois, our editor, is going to put the actual spelling of it. So thank you, editor.
I do like that. That's a good idea. Good idea. But I just carried on, right? Just the way that I treated people, the way that I talked to her, but even the way that I talked about my experiences at church and my experiences with my friends, and but she didn't want anything to do with church. We became good friends. She came to our wedding. It was just really cool. And we've stayed in touch over the years. And she would often tell me that my just being there, just the way that I carried myself, the way that I treated other people, drew her closer to wanting to know more about God. And in fact, now I don't know if she would say that she's at the point where she is a committed follower, but she goes to church, she goes to Bible studies, she's a part of this whole investigating process, and she wants to know more. She's thirsty and she's hungry, because she says that just by watching the way that I did life, without being hey, let me tell you about the verse of the day. Let's have a little Bible study real quick. I didn't do any of that stuff.
And I don't knock anyone that does that type of thing. It's not for me. And I want you to represent yourself and God as best you can.
Yeah, God's made us all different, right? And we all serve a different purpose in that whole the grand scheme of making Him known and making Him popular, famous, whatever you want to say. But you're right. For me, I'm not the same. I could never be a street preacher, or that. I mean, I just don't.
You
have
can never be a
tree,
preacher
so
who
proselytes.
Yep. proselytizing preacher.
But I can be a guy who slurs my speech. See, look at that. Jeez Louise. I told you it's been a week. It's been a week.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All good things.
I don't know what we were talking about.
We were talking about our nation. What can we do as Christians, and what should we do?
So what do you think? Can we make rules that affect people who don't believe in that same morality code?
So I want to say yes. I want to say that we can regulate people, but the more and more I'm just watching people, the more and more I don't know if we can. I honestly I don't know what we can do
because they'll fight back. They won't go for it. It will never pass.
I think people just fight back against it. You know. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we can. I would love to say that. Oh, here are the rules that we have to live by. And whether or not they were Christian rules or whatever, but this is the rules we have to live by, and then everyone's going to follow that. But I don't think we can regulate people into following every law that's out there.
So then, are there punishments?
There have to be, because I think that, and this is the fight that I'm having internally, right? Is like, what should the punishment be, right? Where should that go? Because if you're saying that the rules exist or whatever, then there has to be a punishment. Otherwise, the rule is pointless.
Right.
But people are going to fight against it. Mm-hmm. They're going to go, So I know internally, speaking, the rules need to exist because there isn't an objective truth out there, right? But as I'm interacting in society, my question becomes, how do those two things collide? How do those things come together? I can sit there and say, hey, this is the truth. This is, these are the rules we need to follow, but everyone else doesn't necessarily agree with me. And so, but I can't come to the point where I'm like, let's just live in anarchy.
Yeah. And
so I don't know how that plays out. If you, because we live in America where we get a vote on things, I'm going to continue to vote my conscience on things.
Right. Which is what you should, what we should all do.
We should all do. But I also recognize that just because the majority wants something doesn't make it right.
Right.
And so, I don't. And this is something I've been struggling with. That's why I brought it to you rather than me coming with you. Hey, here are my 10 points on why I'm right. I got you when I got you moment. That wasn't this. It was just more of a, where are you coming with these whole things?
Yeah. Yeah. And the struggle that I've had with even with voting, is that it has seemed anyways, especially over the last handful of years, that politicians will often cater to a base.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's hard to know, is this because you're making sure you hold on to your base, or do you actually feel this way? Are we going to see these things play out? Are we going to see things change? It's hard to know, right? I don't want to be one of those guys that is just totally distrustful of government, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The government is made up of people, and
right.
In all honesty, people cannot be trusted. We're out for ourselves. As a general rule, we're out for ourselves. And only by the Holy Spirit and by common grace, at a minimum, do we even consider other people. So that's why I'm a huge proponent for a small government, because I'm like, let everyone live the way they want to live, as much as possible, and then only have don't kill people, and if you do, there's a punishment associated with it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, do we need to sit there and should we have harsher laws though, and say control everything? Maybe a totalitarian government is better if they don't kill people, they keep everyone alive, but we don't have actual freedoms outside of that.
Yeah, and in those places
exist. Well, I'm saying, did you ever see Equilibrium?
I did.
Where it's you can't have any
it's
thoughts.
Christian Bale, right?
Christian Bale, yep. It was supposed to be a Matrix-esque thing, You do the gunkatas and stuff like that, and
it was the whole utopian, everyone's on the same level.
Yep.
No art, anything like that.
For sure.
You got to keep taking your pill, right? And that's a pretty common theme in those types of movies. That's all you're taking something to inhibit your
emotions and creativity. Yeah. And I mean, that sounds horrible, but I'm on this side of things, and I'm like, But if you could sit there and have that, if it was possible to have that and have no other crimes other than a totalitarian government that just made sure everyone didn't do anything, is that better somehow?
Yeah. So I guess you got to ask the question, like, what's
the ultimate good, I guess, is there?
Yeah, what does it mean to
just
live
to make
a life?
sure everyone's clear, I'm not advocating for this style at all. These are just things that I'm struggling with. Like, and struggling is probably the bad word, just like, or the wrong set of words. It's just things I think about, right? Like, where does that come down on things?
Right. There's not an easy, just trying to figure it out, processing it. Yeah. And I've thought for a long time too that our country is just so big.
Yeah.
That it's difficult to have one. Well, and that's why we've got your tinier, like your state government.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's
all that kind of stuff.
And we've gotten away from states being their own thing. It feels like they're kind of going back to that way, but we've done a lot of things where like we've given the federal government a lot of control.
Yeah.
And we weren't designed that way because we are so big.
Right. Yeah.
And we have so much diverse thoughts, opinions, people, lifestyles.
Yeah, being so large, I mean, your cultures change. I mean, I know that when I lived in the Pacific Northwest and moving down here, like that was a culture shift. Like it's different. I'm getting another call.
But yeah, so I don't know what we can do. Do we regulate it? Can we regulate it?
Yeah, and if we had smaller, if we were a number of smaller countries, I could have swore I muted this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
if we broke up our country into smaller bits, would that make it easier? Would it make it harder? I mean, Europe seems to be having a good time.
Sure. I mean, I think that if we allowed the states to do more of their own thing, and the federal government was more of a collection to say, here's the general defense of the entire 50 states that we have right now, plus the territories, then it'd be better. But because then you could truly say, I don't like this lifestyle. I don't like these rules and regulations in my state. I can move to a different state. But right now, you're going to run into a lot of the same rules and regulations.
It's the same everywhere.
A little bit of flavor difference, but I mean, very similar overall.
Unless you create your own compound.
But then there's a whole Waco, Texas thing happening.
Yeah, was that a ranch in, was it Montana or Idaho? There was a whole ranch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one too. And yeah, that's the whole thing.
But anyways, I think it's almost an impossible situation. But this is why voting matters, to vote for who seems like they're going to do the best for what you think in the way that you feel. And if you disagree that passionately, then you either have to figure out how to deal with it within the proper bounds without breaking the law or creating your own what do they call it? The compound. They would call it. It was called something like a sovereign state, something like that.
Sure.
Or you go to another country. Which I mean, a lot of people threaten that. Nobody ever does it, but a lot of people threaten it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people need to. You can vote with your dollar a little bit. But
a little bit. But I think too, at the end of the day, like the United States is still the best country. Like,
absolutely.
Like we just the freedoms, and I think we talked about. I mean, did we talk about this? I don't know. I think we did. That there are certain freedoms that come with things that aren't so great. Like you can't have it all. And so we live in a country that really is founded on freedoms, and that's why so many people try to come here, because it is the land of the free. It's different. It's got problems. We are not perfect by any sense of the mean, or the sense of the word, means of the sense. Gosh, I tell you,
we are not perfect by any sense of the word.
There it is.
Any meaning of the word. Any
sense of the word, I think.
Any definition of the word.
We're not perfect at all.
By any sense of the phrase.
Yeah. But I wouldn't want to go anywhere else.
No. Yeah, I truly wouldn't want to either. I love America. Yeah. As a Christian, I always find it's a little weird when we pledge allegiance to the American flag. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. As a Christian, I find that a little weird. But I still wouldn't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah. I get teary-eyed at the Star Spangled Banner.
Say that word again.
Star Spangled Banner.
Okay. I felt like you said it weird.
I probably did.
Maybe I think I heard like a Star Spangled Banner. Like it was like I could have just heard it wrong.
I get a little teary-eyed when I hear the Smirker Mangle. You don't?
No, I do. Memorial Day, I went to the Highland Games in.
Is that anything like the Hunger Games?
No, this is supposed to be like the Scottish Highland Games. You know, like they have like caber tossing and the boulder.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but they had a opening ceremony where they had all the different clans in the area walk out, and then they sang the Star Spangled Banner. They played. They had a Marine Corps marching band from Camp Pendleton, I think it was, come up.
Okay,
and they played like the different branches songs.
Okay,
so they played. I can't remember the name of the songs right now, but all those different ones that were out there, you know.
I think the Army song is just called the Army song.
Is it? Maybe it's just called the Navy song. I'm trying to think, but it's like something about drinking to the foam. That's the one line I remember from like that. But I mean, I get a little emotional like when they're like, and then like we know the vets and military people stand up. I'm like, oh, you know, but I'm like inside there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I'm glad I did it.
A little bit. I feel the same way. I don't. I don't like that recognition, but at the same time, it's like, all right, I did it. All right,
you're welcome.
All right. I will say though that when people find out I was in the Army and they go, "Thank you for your service," that I've started replying, "You are personally welcome."
I like that
because then it just like it puts it back on them, and they're like, "Oh, that was really weird." I'm like, yeah, it was. You don't know what I did.
For 10 years, all I thought about was you.
When I signed that paper, it was you I was thinking of.
I looked at the paper and said, "What's your name real quick?"
Yeah.
Kim Johnson? This is for Kim Johnson right here.
This is for you, Kim.
Spelled with a Y.
I was starting to think where else you could put a Y in the name.
KYM. I did this in like the first week or second week podcast.
Was that the name?
I said it was Kimberly. Is what
okay,
I said.
yeah. All right, good recall.
Yeah. Really quick, I think an adult's an adult.
There we go. Okay, yeah.
As soon as you hit 18 or whatever age we set, you should have all the rights as an adult.
Okay.
In California right now, you know, you can only at 18 you can drive or not drive, but you can drive at 18, but you can drive with other people in your car. You can sign up for the military. I don't think you can smoke anymore.
No. You can vote.
You can vote though, yeah. You can't drink.
Yeah, you can't drink or smoke or go into any establishment like that.
Nope. But
until you're 20, both of those are 21.
I think so.
Man, it's funny. It's been so long since I've turned one of those ages that it's like, what is that?
Yeah.
What is the rule?
It's weird to me because we talk to high schoolers and they're like, oh yeah, I'm driving, but I can't drive so and so because it'll be after dark. And I'm like,
yeah,
just put them in your car and go. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And like, no, it's I don't have my hours yet. I'm like,
yeah,
hours.
I don't even know. That makes no sense to me. I got my license and immediately I was putting more people in my car than I had seatbelts for. And then taking them off jumps. Like it did not.
Don't do that, kids.
We only did it once. It was really fun though. The kid in the hatchback to watch him floating in the back. Anyways.
Only did it once because the car was destroyed afterwards.
It did die shortly after that. It didn't. There was somehow I ran out of oil.
What was your first car?
It was a 1982 Plymouth Champ.
Plymouth Champ.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So a Dodge Colt would have been the thing that it was similar to.
The equivalent, yeah.
We had a sticker on the back called the Ducket Bucket. Yeah. Yeah, it was good times.
Oh, nice,
good times. And then it blew up on the highway.
Okay.
It was from the jumps. It was what I can gather anyways. We had a hole in my oil pan and I just ran out of oil. Just didn't realize it. And then one day I heard my my engine
stop.
It was just screeching. It was like just so high pitch. And I was like, oh man, I think I need some oil. And so I went and put like 4 quarts in. It was bone dry. Like I took the stick out, bone dry. So I dumped a bunch of oil in it, let it run for a little while, and I was like, all right, I think we saved that. Went to school. And then as I left school, it was just me, and I was coming on the highway, and all of a sudden, I just like the noise came back, and then like just the whole car was just shaking massively, and then just there was a loud bang, and then I was driving a cloud. I could see nothing. Like there was so much smoke, and so I pulled over to where I thought the side of the road was, because I seriously could not see a thing, and I got out of the car, and all 4 quarts of oil are on the ground, and that was it. It never ran again. Oh man,
that's so good.
We got it towed home, and I think we actually paid $20 to have somebody come tow it, and then that was it.
$20 could not get you a tow these days.
No. What about you? What was your first car?
So the first car that was mine was a 1990 Ford Tempo.
Okay.
I got that in high school, like my senior year, but I did not have my license yet. It was like you're going to get your license, here's your first car type of, like, was the idea behind it. I got it for Christmas, my senior year. And then life happens, and I don't get my license or whatever. And then as soon as senior year is over with, I moved to my aunt and uncle. Mm-hmm. And part of that whole thing is like my mom started driving the car. And so while she was driving it, like the brakes caught on fire. And if I remember, it was what happened. And then like the brakes caught on fire, the car basically caught on fire, and the car was done. So that was technically my first car. It was mine. That's what I claim.
Yeah. But you never got to drive it.
Not really. I was practicing it a lot. Yeah. The first car that I owned as a driver was a 2001 Ford Mustang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the one that you had when I first started here?
That was a 2011 Ford Mustang.
So you've had, okay.
I've had 2 Mustangs in my life.
All right.
They've both been fun cars.
The first car I actually bought, because my Plymouth Champ was one that was handed down to me as well. It sat on the side of our house for like 10 years. And like when it came time for my turn to drive it, I had to like get the weeds out from inside the car. But the first car that I bought after I blew my car up was I think it was a 82, 95. It must have been a 95 Chevy S10.
Okay.
Little red pickup truck.
Okay.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was really a lot of fun.
I had a friend that had an S10, absolutely loved it.
Yep. It was a good car.
Yeah. So back to the idea of adults.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on adults? Like should someone be an adult and get all the privileges of adulthood, or should we like ration it out?
Yeah. I mean,
once again, we're not politicians, so it's just asking. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that if you're an adult, you're an adult. So yeah, that would make sense. You're right. Like that if we're going to count you as an adult in certain things, then you should be an adult in all things.
Yeah.
If that means that we've got to take being an adult all the way up to 21, that like an 18-year-old is not a good age for adulting anymore, which is crazy because when you think back, 50 years, like when you're 14, you're out running your own business.
Yeah.
But nowadays you're 35 and you're like, hang on, one more round of Call of Duty, right? Like it's different.
Don't you knock Call of Duty?
I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's just different, right?
Yeah.
It's just that.
I wonder, like, part of me wonders with that idea is like, if we started saying, at 18 you're an adult and you're expected to have all adultness in there, mm-hmm. then do we raise our kids differently as a result?
Yeah,
knowing full well that 18
at 18 you're an adult.
Yes.
Like yeah, and that's how I hope to raise my boys in that way of like hey, no, it's. You need to have these things figured out because once you hit 18, once you graduate high school, like they're different. Like the expectations of your contributions to society, whatever, are different. Like you're not a kid anymore. Now, if they change everything to 21, then that'll change it like that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I even thought of it because like a few years ago, they were like, 16-year-olds should be able to vote, and I was like, well, if that's the case, then in my mind, a 16-year-old needs to be a full adult. Right. And that becomes the new adulthood point. Yeah. So at 16, you should be able to drink, drive, smoke, join the army or military in general. Mm-hmm. Everything at 16 that the government can issue you should happen. Yeah. Now, if a private company wants to say no, you have to wait till you're 25 to get to rent a car. Right. That's on a private company. Right. But as far as the government is concerned, the second you hit adulthood, you should be a full-on adult. Yeah.
And that kind of makes sense that if you are an adult only in certain aspects and some have to come later, right? So like the idea of voting when you're 16, for the most part, you still live at home, right? And so your worldview, your experiences, the things that actually affect you are way smaller at 16 than they are when you are 18 or 21 once you're out of the house and you're like, oh, this is what the world is like. That totally changes how I would vote.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
no longer just vote the R or the D because that's what my mom told me to put.
Right. Yeah, I remember hearing that too growing up. I didn't know what any of those meant.
You just find the R, check that box, find the D, check that box, whatever your parents told you.
Just always looking for the D. And
I can bring it back.
I don't know anymore. I lost it.
Yeah, so once you're an adult, you're an adult. Whether that's 16, 18, 21, 26.
Yeah. And I'll side on older the better for right now because of just the way that our society, in the most part, works. Like just that idea of adolescent has expanded. It used to be a shorter period, and it's a little bit bigger now.
But has that expanded because we allowed it to?
For sure.
So
totally has.
If we sat there and said 18, you become an actual adult, and we're going to hold you to those standards of adult, of being an adult, like in all shapes and forms, then would we, as a society, start changing the way we handle things?
I think totally. But if the very, very prolific Matt Groening is correct, wait, Matt Groening?
Futurama, Simpsons?
So not Matt Groening. It's Mike Judge.
Okay. King of the Hill?
Yep. Idiocracy.
Oh, okay.
We're going the other way. We are not getting smarter. We are not working harder. We are not refining things in a way that would be better. We are not challenging ourselves to work harder and faster and better at a younger age.
But that was because the people that were a good member of society, as I'll call them, stopped having kids and stopped putting their values into their kids. Mm-hmm. And the people who were a drain on society were just like rabbits spread. Not saying that they are somehow unintelligent, just their morals and the way that they handle things
are different. Spread, yeah.
Yes.
But I think it's harder to go that way, right? Like just it's harder to make that shift. It's kind of like, I mean, things that I've told the youth before, right? If you wait until you're 30 to start learning self-control, like it's possible, but man, way harder than if you start learning it at 13, 14.
I just thought like a train, like you try to stop a train that's going 90, it's hard. You try to stop a train that's like barely starting off, easier.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so sure, like I think it's totally possible, and I think it would be better. I think we'd be better for it. I think, right? Again,
for sure.
I don't know. Who knows what kind of side effects there would be, but that train's already booking.
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned, like 14-year-olds, like that would go out and have a full-time job and raising their family and stuff like
Even
that.
Younger Newsies.
Yep. I don't necessarily think we should go back that far, although I love that movie. But yeah, like it would be nice to see if we can find some way to do it. You read about how the word teenager didn't even enter the lexicon until like the 50s.
Right, and that's crazy to think about.
Yeah. Before that, you were just a kid and an adult.
Yeah.
And that might have coincided with puberty, but...
Right,
then,
which, I mean...
and then we put an 18-year-old and said that's the new dead or the new adult point, and so even after puberty, you're not considered an adult anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
One final question, and this is just off the top of my head. Have you and Liz discussed what happens when Ryan turns 18 with the house? Is he allowed to stay there free?
With the house?
Like, is he allowed to stay there?
No, we haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's just barely getting out of fifth grade.
For sure. I just don't know if you guys have had that thought.
No, and I think that it'll all depend on what he's got going on, right? I think that it'll probably definitely be one of those conversations. I can't say this for 100%, but I know just based on how we run the house right now, Liz will be more likely to like let him stay longer, and I'll be more likely to be like, hey, it's time to move on. She just loves having her boys around, and so she doesn't. She is not at the point.
Once he hits that age where he's no longer a fan of mom, that might change.
I don't think that's ever going to happen.
You don't think it's ever going to happen?
That's never going to happen. Those 3 boys, man, they love her just absolute pieces. I think I'll gain ground as they get older, but she's not losing ground.
No, I'm sorry. Losing ground sounds bad, but I'm saying like there's a point in every young man's life where he's like he wants that. Like it seems to be like get away from me, mom, dad. Like not that they hate you, just more of a I can do it myself. Leave me alone.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean,
and obviously we'll see what happens as your boys develop, but
yeah, whatever episode we'll be on, we'll talk about it then.
Yeah. I like this plan. I've always had the thought of like making the kid pay rent, and then but not spending that money. So hey, you have to pay $200 a month, something small, manageable for him, just so he learns the. Speaking he, because I'm talking about your son. In this particular case, but just so they learn the importance of paying rent every month, being a part of that, and then I've heard people say they take that money and then when the kid moves out. They hand. Oh, Liz knows I'm talking about her right now.
You see the FaceTime? Yep.
But you hand the kid on their last day in the house, saying, "Hey, here's all the money you've been paying me. You know, go put it down for a house or go put whatever you're gonna do next with it." So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
I forget who told me that one. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
All
right. Shout out.
Do you have someone?
You know what? I kind of like this angle right here. Like I've got my computer at a different spot because Liz was trying to FaceTime me right there. It was like I could see it at a different angle. Like I like that. Like it was like I wasn't looking like right at it because right here with the phone here, like I'm looking kind of like just a little bit over. But my computer doesn't have the same kind of resolution. Anyways, I've shouted out both of 2 of my boys so far, so I just figured, hey, let's round it out. I just want to say, hey Ryan, buddy, I love you, proud of you. You are in a robotics class right now, and
that's so cool.
I love hearing you talk about just building and crafting and redoing and the idea of like coding and modding. I'm so excited with where all that's going to take you. And so, yeah, just proud of you. I'm glad I'm your dad. And there you go. That's my shout out.
I love it. My shout out this week is going to be to my fiance. Hey. Someone I haven't actually shouted out yet.
All right.
And I've been like keeping track of that one. Like you shouted out your wife in the very beginning. I was like, oh, do I look bad? Am I a terrible fiance for not shouting her out so quickly?
Yeah. Yes, you were.
We'll see if she even calls me out on it. But yeah,
she's not listening anyway. She doesn't know.
No, she does. I came to her house the other day and she just like had it like the phone in her pocket. Yeah. And she was listening to the podcast. Yeah. But Carissa, I love you. Thank you for being my fiance and my future wife. I look forward to doing life with you.
So cool.
And the the wedding night stuff too.
What do you mean? By the way, you should expect to get a text message from me at some point that night just to ask what you're doing.
Oh, so okay, really quick.
Okay.
I told Carissa I kind of want to do this. I want to have an automatic message pop out at some point in time. That's like, the Lonely Island song, I Just Had Sex?
Yes.
Just have it go out. Like
just schedule one. Like so just set it up with like all of the just different people, and then everyone gets a text at whatever time.
Like 10:30 at night or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I should put it on Facebook, and she goes, if you do, my mom will kill you. I'm like, but it's true, and we're married at that point in time. She goes, it will not matter.
That's really funny.
So,
oh man. All right.
I'm looking forward to marriage.
As you should. Well, cool. Let's we'll wrap up here with those 2 things. Number 1, we want you to know that you're loved, not only by us, but by God in heaven, who loves you, who sent his son to die for you, who did so willingly, because you're worth it. You have value, and so you are loved.
And not only you're loved, but tomorrow is not guaranteed. So do business tonight with whoever you got to do business with. It could be a family, be friends. It should be God. Make sure you're right with God, because you don't know how tomorrow is going to be. So, yeah, you might die tonight.
It's true. And this has been Level 5 Podcasting. I have been Jesse.
I'm Jeremiah.
We love you guys.
Get out of here, you crazy kids.